Another epic weekend of football has been concluded, but now we turn our full attention to the international break and more specifically, Gareth Southgate's England side. Today, there is a lot to debate players, form, squad. We're also going to pick our starting 11 as it stands for the Euros this year. Stay tuned. Let's get it. Here we go. Right, let's get straight into it then. We're going to go through our starting 11s. We're going to pick our starting lineups. And while we're there, we can talk squad, who's been picked, who hasn't, who maybe should have been included in this England side for the friendlies coming up. Reese, let's kick things off. Who is going to be your goalkeeper and why?
It has to be Jordan Pickford. He's the only one actually really playing more consistently in goal. I know Sam Johnson does play for Palace, but does tend to rotate that with Henderson. I think Jordan Pickford has been the best option out of the three picked. And I think it'd be very unfair for Southgate to go for the other two keepers, regardless of if they're friendlies or not. Pickford has cemented that place.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that, to be honest. Jamie, any disagreements?
No disagreements on Pickford's the starting goalkeeper, but I do think there's a little bit of interesting conversation about who should be the two other goalies that go to the Euros. Because you've got to remember, Ramsdale does not start for Arsenal. He played against Brentford because he had to. And unless Raya gets injured, he probably isn't going to start another game for Arsenal until the end of until the season's gone. And he has to leave Arsenal if he's going to start. So for me, I don't know when Pope is back. I haven't actually looked that up, but if Pope is fit, he should go instead of Ramsdale because he would be a starter for Newcastle. There's no question about it. And Sam Johnson is starting for Palace, definitely more than what Ramsdale is. So I think they should be the three goalies. And it's a bit sad for Ramsdale, but unfortunately it's tough shit. Really.
Yeah.
Really, to put it bluntly.
Well, he's not had the simple reality is you're right. He's not starting for his club, therefore really shouldn't be in contention. And he's not got that track history with England that Southgate can pick more loyalty. So yeah, he might end up, depending on Pope, might end up going. But you're right, it's unlikely based on this that Southgate's going to drop Pickford. And to be fair to Pickford, fully justified his place. So let's move on because this is where it's going to get very interesting. So I'll just quickly read through the players that are in the current squad. So Branthwaite has got a call up for, I believe, the first time ever. You've got Chilwell, Lewis Dunk, Joe Gomez, Ezri Konsa, Harry Maguire, Stones, and Carl Walker. Who are you guys picking? Obviously, we've got to go off what's here at the minute and who is, I guess, available for selection. Let's do it that way. Jamie, let's come straight back to you. Who at the minute would start for you in this team at right back?
Well, right back's Walker. It always has been under Southgate, and it probably always will be while Southgate's still there. Walker, I think I don't see he's had a fantastic season for his standards, but it's still definitely good enough. And the people who have been picked, there's no one better than him as the right back.
Well, on that, obviously, form-wise, I probably do agree, to be fair. But we have seen Southgate pick Trippier many times before and arguably favour Trippier. I know Trippier's also played on the left a few times. Would he get a start? I know he's, whatever, out of form, injured at the minute, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Does he get in this side? Is there even a conversation there? Because you've got to remember, the right back position is probably the most stacked we've got on paper.
He doesn't start right back. Right back, he cannot. He doesn't start. He doesn't start either Walker, and then second is Trent. And now some people are saying Trent maybe goes into midfield. But there's no... Trippier can only play left back for England. I don't see any world, apart from injuries, where he starts. And also this season, for quite a bit of it, he's been terrible. Unfortunately, I have rated Trippier, but this season he's been well off it. So if you want form players, you're not starting him over Walker. And even though I'm saying Walker's not had a great season, it's still definitely a better season than Trippier. And then you got Trent, who's also injured and not in this squad. Them two are miles ahead. I even think at the moment, Gomez will start right back ahead of Trippier. So I don't see him in it at all. He might be in the squad, but I don't see him starting.
I don't agree with the Gomez point because you've got to remember Southgate again has picked. Some people say he's favourites, right? But if they've delivered for him in an England shirt, then maybe that's harsh to say he's picking favourites. But you pick players you trust, and he does trust Trippier. So although Trippier's not had a great season, I still wouldn't completely rule him out of the conversation.
But you
I
wouldn't
think
have
for
him as
me,
right back, would you?
I wouldn't, but
No, but
I
I'm saying
wouldn't
I
rule
don't
him
think
out. Putting him right
he's not
back.
even started for England as a right back. He's always started left back in the sort of Euros and World Cup that he's been in. I don't think he's actually ever been right back. He's always been left back. So that's why I'm saying in contention for right back, I just don't see it at all.
Yeah, fair. Very unlikely again. I'm not sure on the exact status of his fitness. Again, doesn't matter right now. Reece James, again, another one. You've got Wan-Bissaka who's just come back as well. Like the depth at right back is just a joke. Like if everyone's fit and everyone's on form, it's a tough old job being Southgate in that position. I'll say mine. I do agree. Based on the current available players, based on form and where the teams are at, it has to be Kyle Walker for me. Reece, would you throw anyone else in the mix, or are you going to agree with us on Walker at the moment?
It has to be Walker at the moment. He's the best player, I think, by far. I mean, the guy's 33 years old, and look at, still got the pace on him. He still performs at a high level every game. I think for friendlies, this is all okay to experiment. I do think if there is an olive branch, Ben White will be considered. He won't start at right back, but he will be considered. I think you have to look at him and think, well, he's played all these games for Arsenal, whereas Reece James has not been playing for Chelsea because of injury. Trent is currently injured, but he can move to midfield. He will be an option. I think you want the best of the best to be playing in the best tournaments, right? I know this sounds double standard because I've said about in how our goalkeeper plays for Everton currently, but that's neither here nor there. But I think those sort of things will come into the fray later on in life. Later on in the season. But for now, it has to be Walker.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up White.
Yeah.
As it stands, he is obviously, depending on what rumours and everything you believe, the Arsenal directors basically confirmed that Ben White didn't want to be called up.
Hey guys, very quick one. If you've got this far in the episode, one very small favour we ask, if you could please help us out and hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, and as always, it's absolutely free. This means you won't miss an episode, you'll always be up to date, and of course it helps us grow the channel. Appreciate your support. Back to the video.
From my understanding, no actual reason has been made public. There's obviously a lot of speculation, doesn't care about football enough, doesn't want to represent his country, thinks he deserves to start. Obviously, that's less of a likely rumour. But any player turning down an England call-up for me, you're not worthy. Like, you're not being picked for the Euros if you can't be asked to turn up to a couple friendlies. So for me, I agree. If Ben White was available and hadn't done what he'd done, he should be on that plane. Simple as that. Because he can fill in the centre back. He can play right back if there's a couple of injuries. But I think that's the end for him under particularly Southgate.
You can't have. I think we actually were saying that rumours are going around. One of them is he's fallen out with one of Southgate's staff, and who's had apparently they've had a row, and Ben White's like, well, he's there. I don't want to be involved in that, which is whatever. It's still rumours, but if you're turning down the opportunity to be picked, you can't be picked for the World Cup. The Euros. I'm sorry,
No, that's true.
You just can't be.
You can't expect it to have it, can you? Can't have it both ways.
You can't just go, I'm going to play in the big tournament. Because one, you're not good enough to demand that. You're just not.
Yeah.
it'd be a bit different if Kane was like, well, Kane's injured. I'm going to put the quotation marks because you get injuries around this time. But if Kane went, you know what? I don't want to play these two friendlies. Let someone else have another chance, but I will be there for the Euros. He's good enough to do that, to have that opportunity. Don't think it's personally right, but he's good enough to be that. Ben White is not good enough to be in that position. And even if he was available, he shouldn't be starting right back.
And just to add to that, sorry, just to add to that, Kane is, from my understanding, going with the boys for these friendlies.
Yeah.
So
probably not fit enough to play, and Bayern probably go, don't risk it for some friendlies, which fair enough.
Yeah.
I think it moves on nicely to centre backs because actually that's the position Ben White probably could have fitted in quite well. Even though he doesn't play that for Arsenal, he still can adapt to that. I think he is originally a centre back. I think he played there when he was at Brighton, so I think it's definitely like an option he could have been for the squad. In terms of actually who should be, it's going to sound boring, but it's Stones and Maguire, isn't it? Because I think after that, the lack of quality does dip. Because the other options are what? Dunk, Braithwaite, and Konza.
Yeah.
I don't think they're better than Maguire. Stones is first choice and should be in everyone's team. Then it's Maguire's been off form probably a year or so ago, but he's still better than everyone else.
Yeah, it's annoying, but yeah, I kind of agree because form-wise, I'm a big fan of Branthwaite, I must say. Again, Konsa's not been bad for Villa either. Like Dunk's, Brighton have been here and there, but Dunk has looked pretty consistent. So like, I wouldn't hate any of those starting. But you're right. The simple reality is, Maguire and Stones just know each other. They get along sounds a bit weak, but they know, like, a centre back pairing. You look at all the great centre back duos over the years. It's that relationship and that trust and that familiarity that is key to a centre back partnership. And despite Maguire's obvious flaws, I still wouldn't mind seeing him and Stones as the centre backs. So, I think you're probably right there. Reece, would you throw anyone else in the mix? I do agree with the White point. It looks like White's sort of done now. Anyone else?
No, I think it makes sense. Maguire has been playing for United, so you can't say he can't play, and he does deserve it because he is good. Contrary to popular belief, he is a good defender. I personally would actually use these friendlies to actually do Stones and Braithwaite. I think Braithwaite has been very, very good. Again, he's playing for Everton, so even though they're struggling, but you could argue that he is probably better, one of the better players, and he probably would do a job. I think by the summer we might see him move to a bigger club anyway, so I think it's a good opportunity for him. But I agree with Jamie. I think it's one of those positions where we don't have as much quality to go after that. No disrespect to Dunk or, Konza. I don't think they're of that level to start. I wouldn't see Konza and, Dunk making it into the French team, for example. But yeah, I think that seems fair. Joe Gomez does deserve a chance as well. I think he could, he learned a lot with Van Dijk at the back, hasn't he? So he could be a good option, but maybe not just yet. Maybe at 3 at the back if they go for that.
Just one sort of point though, with the sort of Braithwaite, then you're going to have, like, think about, you're trying to win a tournament here, and you've got Everton's centre back and goalie. Does that spark confidence in you? The team that are, I know they've had point deduction, but are sitting 5th bottom of the league. It doesn't build you up with confidence. I'm not saying Maguire does or whatever, but things like that do matter, I think.
Yeah, but it is a dilemma. Sorry, Jamie, it is a dilemma for Southgate. It's one of those things we criticise him on, he's picking his mates, the ones but they are the ones that do the job, and I do think, you should be playing if you deserve it, or if you are playing regularly, you should be picked for England. I do think we had a habit of handing out caps, like they were going out of fashion at one stage. But I do think I get what you mean. You want the best to play for the best. You don't see teams winning. You might have one or two players from lower league down, but let's be honest, yeah, you got to have the best players to win it. It's a dilemma that Southgate has, but I don't think in a friendly there's anything wrong with experimenting here. But in the World Euros, Maguire will ultimately be the choice.
Yeah, I think for these two friendlies, I don't care who starts. I generally don't. I don't care what he does. I'd be actually more happy if no City players started. Being totally honest, I want them fit and ready for when we play Arsenal. But you experiment in these friendlies because that's what they're for. Otherwise, I think they're utterly pointless if you're not going to experiment.
Agreed. Right, let's move on. So the left back position, I think, would have been a little bit of a point of debate, but is less so because of the injuries. Now, I'll obviously kick things off. I would have said this option regardless of the injuries, and I've said it for years. I still think I've been proven right. Chilwell is better than Luke Shaw. Simple as that, in my opinion. Better at attacking, better at defending. Some people might disagree. If you do, pause the video, hit us up in the comments. At the minute, obviously Shaw's out injured, and there's not an obvious. Again, Trippier, who's been left back, is also injured. So I don't think this is contentious right now. Assuming everyone's fit, would you guys go with anyone other than Chilwell? Let's frame it like that.
No.
I would actually pick Shaw.
Again, he delivers for England, doesn't he? He does deliver. He has got better for United too.
I don't think he's. I think he's actually been The problem is now he's picked up quite a few injuries, and that's actually a problem with Chilwell as well. They're both injury prone. But I think in my actual overall starting 11, it's Shaw instead of Chilwell. I think he's done more for England. I think Chilwell is good in a 5 at the back. If we're playing 5 at the back, I would start Chilwell over Shaw. But in a 4, I prefer Shaw to Chilwell. I think Chilwell I don't think he complements our sort of strike force because I think he's so attacking. You've seen him at Chelsea turn up in positions where a striker should be. And we've got too many good attacking options for him to be doing that. So I think he wouldn't be able to do what he does best for England, and that could cost us at the back as well. So I'd pick Shaw. But in this sort of friendlies, Gomez has been playing left back at times while Robertson's been out. I know there's Timicas as well. So he can fill in, and I think that'd be fine for the friendlies, or if there were injuries to Chilwell and Shaw, which unfortunately could be quite likely with their injury record.
Cool. All right. First slight disagreement. We're getting somewhere. Let's move into midfield. So obviously we'll do a 4-3-3 formation. Let's start with probably one of the obvious ones that I'll be genuinely shocked if we disagree with. Declan Rice. I don't really need to say much on him. Been sensational for Arsenal, and to do that at 105 mil is unreal. Phillips, who was arguably his competition, that's probably even a stretch, is now just basically off the face of the earth in terms of form. Is there anyone to start above Rice? I know the answer.
Jordan Henderson? No?
Yeah,
in form for Ajax.
What do you mean?
It probably start, and Rice might play a bit further forward. I'd say.
It's Rice in that position for me due to the other options we've got. I just don't see anyone else actually playing there. But for the friendlies, why not play Henderson in that role if he's in the squad at all?
Well, let's just read off actually to that point. We'll read off the technical midfielders. Obviously, there's other players who can play in midfield. Bellingham, Gallagher, Henderson, Palmer, and Rice. Obviously, you can debate, some of those you'd say are attackers and some of the attackers you'd say midfielders. But so let's say Rice is now done for all of us. Who else are you boys going to go for in the midfield and why?
I assume Henderson will play in midfield. So might as well just keep him in there, to be fair. We've got a lot of versatile sort of players in this position, really. I suppose naturally.
Reece, are you saying Henderson is in your starting 11 for the Euros? Like,
Yeah, I think he will anyway. So,
do you want him in there? That's the
I'll let
question.
you. I'll let you.
I don't think there's any harm playing him. I think he's got the experience to do it. I think he's made a rod of his own back with the whole Saudi move, hasn't he? And maybe Southgate should go, you know what? I'm not going to play you because you know, or whatever. But it doesn't really matter where he plays. I think he does deliver consistently, but I think he will play. We've got a lot of versatile midfielders anyway. You know, I'd probably say Bellingham might start around a bit further forward in the centre mid role if we're going to do a 4-3-3. But yeah, I don't see why Henderson isn't going to start. I'd like to, you know, it's one of those things. Loads of players that can take the position, but realistically, will they?
I'm gonna have to disagree. Henderson should not be playing any minutes in this tournament now. I don't mind him in the squad because he's got that experience and leadership. So I don't mind him being around the team. But he shouldn't be starting anymore. The trip to Saudi, playing at Ajax, Ajax haven't been great this season either. They've improved, but they haven't been good either. So it's not like, you know what, he's playing for a big club out there in Ajax, but it's not like they've been any good. So I wouldn't take the name of the club for why he should be playing. I don't think he should be. So Rice is definitely in for me. Bellingham, and the one after, I've got kind of two players I'd play. It's either Maddison or I'd play Foden. And that would be sort of Foden. I think Foden playing there or he's going to probably be on the wing is the sort of option that Southgate could go for. I don't see him doing it because he's made comments in the past saying he doesn't play there for City, so he won't, even though if you watch him, he's technically right wing, but he's playing centre mid. So I'd prefer that, where Bellingham is the sort of middleman between attack and defence, and then you've got, say, Maddison there, who's that more cam sort of player. So that'd be my middle three. Sorry.
I think we've missed the trick here personally, and I think that Bellingham is shown for Madrid why he should be in a more attacking role. We've seen his ridiculous form, particularly at the start of the season before getting a bit of a knock, but he's been scoring goals for fun. He's been looking like a prime Frank Lampard, where he's always in the right position at every single time. And for that, although he can do a bit of the defensive work and the covering and the tackling, I think he should be the one in that CAM role. And the midfielder who I think should be sitting in behind, again, I wouldn't hate. I think the Henderson hate, I don't know. I guess for Henderson, the Saudi move is basically him accepting that he's retiring. Do you know what I mean? He's accepting he's past his peak. For me, the man that no one said so far is Conor Gallagher. The stats don't lie at the end of the day. But the stats don't lie. The stats don't lie. He's got the work rate, he's got the passing, he's got the defensive side to his game, and the attacking stats are there. He needs to score more goals, but for me, he is the perfect middleman between Bellingham and Rice. Bellingham more attacking, Rice more defensive, Gallagher in the middle, pressing, doing a bit of both. Personally, I think that's the perfect midfield where you've got a bit of everything. But I don't know. The fact, as you said, you could argue Foden in there. You could throw Maddison in there. You could throw Palmer in there. There's so much depth in these positions here for England. But yeah, I think Gallagher needs to be in a shout, and not a lot of people are saying it, but maybe I'm biased.
There's definitely a depth. I just think that there's also going to be players that are too similar. That's my opinion. Henderson and Rice, I suppose, in a way, are similar players in the way they sort of play, but I just think there's going to be too many the same, and it's just like, how's anything different going to happen? I don't see how taking off, say, Maddison, you know, and bringing on, say, I don't know, bad example, probably Foden, how it's going to be any much more different. If Foden plays further up the pitch, completely agree. I just think we've got a lot of players that are very similar. And I think like tactically, I don't see how that's going to make a huge difference for us. It probably will, but I think we need that player of depth. So I do get the Gallagher argument a little bit. Someone a little bit different.
Bit of a hybrid. That's the way I see it. And let's move on to the attack. We'll start again with the obvious one. Or is it obvious? Harry Kane, the captain. I assume we don't see Southgate dropping him, but I do think we've got to give a shout out to Ollie Watkins, man. Ridiculous form. And he definitely earned the call up. Will he start? Honestly, I don't think so. And Kane deserves that. Obviously, I'm going Kane. Would any of you go rogue and pick Watkins over Kane?
I've seen online, I'm not saying for me, but I've seen online where people were playing Watkins up front and Kane behind, because Kane does like to come to the ball and not be, that focal point up front. So it's a slight option. I wouldn't have actually mind to see that in these friendlies just to experiment, but obviously not going to happen now. Watkins deserves your call up. Bowen has deserved his call up as well. You got to remember he's banging in goals for West Ham and not getting the plaudits that Watkins has got. Not saying Watkins don't deserve it, by the way, but it's got to be Kane for the actual. If everyone's fit, it's Kane. Kane's a level above every striker we have, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. He's just very, very good. Even if he does have a curse around him, that's the only probably argument you could say. Don't put him in the team because there's a curse. Even if Bayern can't win the league, you're cursed.
Well, I guess Watkins hasn't. Watkins and Bowen has won a trophy, but Watkins hasn't won much either. So, but yeah, he's breaking records in Germany. Whether they win the league or not, he's still a machine. So he has to start. Let's get into the wingers. Maybe a little bit contentious. I can probably. Well, let's start. Who's starting for you? Saka on the right. Is that a banker, or is there some competition now?
Saka will play on the right in friendlies and against the easier teams. When it comes to the crunch and it comes to those big moments, he fails to deliver. So I would not play him then, and I would try somebody else. That's where someone like Foden comes in handy. You might even spice it up and try Watkins on the side. I don't know. But Saka until the later stages, I think, when it comes to the pressure moments. And that's not being disrespectful to Saka, by the way. I do love the guy, but I just think he's proven time and time again when it really matters, he hasn't delivered.
Yeah, there's a bit of a reputation of not necessarily doing the big games.
The argument you've got is he's got until the end of the season to prove you wrong here, Reese. Because if you go and win the league, he's going to be important in that. I don't see you winning it without him being important. So
yeah, completely agree.
He can prove you wrong in this. I think the only argument against Saka here, I think Saka does start, by the way, is Foden's been playing on the right this season, and arguably Foden's been better this season. So that's the only sort of contentious way people can argue that position. But for me, Southgate will play Saka on the right for every single game, whether he doesn't prove Reece wrong or not. I think it's regardless because it's Southgate, and I think most of the country would agree it's going to be Saka on the right.
Yeah. On the left, who are you guys saying at the minute?
Well, I'll start. It should be Foden. Foden has to be in this side. And if you look at the other sort of players that have been playing there, Grealish picked up several injuries, and even when he's played, he's not hit the level that he was last season when we won the treble. So you pick Foden over him, and the other one is Rashford, who's not been that great this season. Has started to get a bit more into it now. His goal against Liverpool on the weekend, but it should be Foden. I think it'll be a disgrace if Foden isn't starting after the season he's having and how good he is to not be in this side.
So, I'm going to chuck in the mix. And you can call it bias, but the facts are the facts. Cole Palmer, breakout season. And we're talking here about Foden having the season of his life. If I'm not mistaken, in the league, Palmer has got the same goals and more assists.
Does
Than
take
Foden.
penalty.
Than Foden.
Does
Does
take
take pens,
penalty.
so there's probably 4 or 5 pens in there.
I think it's more than that.
No, but listen. He's got more goals and assists than Bellingham and Foden. So you can spin it however you want. He needs to be in the conversation, in my opinion.
I think he's in the squad.
I just don't know how we get him in the team.
I don't think you do. And that I don't mean that as a criticism to Palmer, but he's not better than Foden. He's not better than Saka. He's having a very good season at Chelsea, and I think is helping him that you're not looking great overall. I think he's the only light that you can see at Chelsea, really.
I think that's why, though, if I'm being honest. If we were battling for top 4, he'd be in the conversation. He'd be in the same conversation as Foden and Saka.
But
the stats are there, the performances are there, but because we're 11th, I think that's why personally.
I think that does matter.
Well, I guess it's to Reese's point. Yeah.
We've also got to say, if Palmer was still at City, Palmer wouldn't be starting ahead of Foden.
I don't know. Based on the stats, though, he's got more goals and assists.
More goals and assists, but you got to remember that that's not the only thing about it. And I'm not saying Palmer hasn't been good on the eye without the goals and assists, but I still would say Foden is performing better than Palmer. But Palmer's still absolutely brilliant season, but still isn't ahead of Foden or Saka for me. And they're the only 2 positions I can see Palmer being. I think Palmer's more on the right anyway. I think he is for Chelsea.
Yeah, he's been more right for us.
Yeah, he has. To be fair, Foden has been, but Foden has played on the left more than what Palmer has as well. So I understand your point because he has been good, but I just can't see him in the starting 11 and would only... I think actually I agree with Reese with what you're saying earlier. You can't even put him on as a sub. If Foden's, say, not working or Saka's not working, Palmer's not that much of a different type of player. Whereas if you brought on Rashford, that's a different type of player. So it's very difficult to get him even as a sub in the team. And I think he's been brilliant. So it's a difficult one.
And Reese, where would you go? Just to wrap us up, left side of midfield or left wing?
I would agree with Jamie. If Foden doesn't start, it's criminal. I don't think Sterling's done enough. We saw, his attempt of a rugby
He's not in the
penalty
conversation at the minute.
weekend. Rashford only seems to have hit form as we approach the Euros, so I'd have to question that. Why is it mattering now? Palmer is good, but I agree. He's where he is because Foden, they wanted to play Foden instead. So again, no disrespect. That's just how I see it, I think.
Fair enough. Well, that wraps us up. We've had our say. We want to hear from you. Like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill. Fucking hell, that was sweaty.
Sweet, yeah. It's probably going to come
Bit
out
rough,
in the next
but
2 seconds. I think that's fine, to be honest.
yeah, got there in the end.
If we wanted to discuss how we think England are going to do, I mean, we can wait until